Hi, my name is Eddie Detubo. I'm a global leader in transformation and project and change management. I'm also the Director of Transformation for the British Broadcasting Corporation, BBC.
Hi, I'm Sabina Ford. I'm the Regional Head of Indirect Procurement for Chanel UK.
My name is Duro Oye, Founder and Chief Exec of 2020 Levels, which is a social mobility charity supporting young adults from Black and racially underrepresented backgrounds in the areas of personal, career and business development.
Okay, hang on, I just had a bug. Can I do that again? My name is Sarah Flambard. I am a senior lawyer and manager at Macquarie, where I'm covering for the equities markets and the hedge fund business.
Hi, my name is Christine. I'm a mental health social worker. I'm based in the community as well as in hospitals.
I'm Dan. I'm a degree apprentice at Unilever.
Hello, my name is Ivasi and I'm a product manager at Deutsche Bank.
Hi, my name is Vincent Mastin. I am currently the growth lead for an AI research and development lab called Passion Labs. I was previously studying at Cambridge, worked for a year in investment banking at firms like Lazard and HSBC, and then shortly after that founded my own startup within the AI space.
Hi, my name is Dara Douglas. I'm a director at PwC in our consulting business, and I do a huge amount of work around diversity and inclusion. It's a really important topic for me, how we can drive a more inclusive workforce. But not only that, I also look heavily at the future of work and how technology is disrupting it. And given the world that we're living in right now, so much is changing. I was really keen to bring this conversation together with the experienced generation, the new generation, and what we can learn from each other, and how can we co-create a future for ourselves.
Hi, I'm Salome. I am the host of this roundtable. I'm the founder of Tones, which is a creative agency and media platform amplifying young, underrepresented voices. So today we have a roundtable. We have Black leaders versus Black Gen Z, talking about something that affects us all, the job crisis. So we have representation from a wide range of industries. I'm talking social work, I'm talking Lazard, HSBC, Chanel, BBC, so many. And today we're going to sit down and discuss the issues that are impacting us, the job crisis, and yes, we hope you take something away from it and let us know what you think as well.
Welcome everybody. We're really excited to be here. We have an amazing group of people from a whole range of different backgrounds and sectors coming together today for this roundtable. This roundtable is not about employability advice. It's not about how young people should navigate the job market.
Yes, the intention is to explore structural, cultural and institutional forces shaping the world of work. And we're going to hear from senior leaders in the space and also from Gen Z leaders in their own right.
Amazing. And the whole question we're trying to answer is, what is the current job market revealing to us about the kind of society that we're building and who is it designed to work for? So very excited for the conversation and looking forward to hearing all of your perspectives. Where we want to start today is by trying to understand, first of all, the expectations, the promise that people have when they're entering the world of work. Many people are brought up with this expectation that if you go to school and you get good grades, you'll get a good job. And so the first question I want to ask, maybe to the experienced leaders first of all, is that promise true? Was it ever true?
As you say, our parents from our generation, they were in societies that were evolving. Some of their societies were evolving through colonization, and they were returning to sort of self-rule, and that created opportunities for them in education, but also for them then to begin to start new careers. There was this split between sort of what you call white collar and blue collar jobs. The white collars definitely paying more. Naturally, the pathway for that was education. Go to school, get good grades, and you get into one of those good jobs left over by the colonials that had left. Obviously, societies have evolved. The world is a lot more globalized. People, countries have developed, significantly, and that dichotomy between what you call sort of white collar and blue collars are actually erased. Jobs are more creative and innovative in that sense. You've seen an evolving of the society where it's not so much about education-backed jobs, but it's more around skills and capabilities.
I think the promise once upon a time was true. Education is a real strong force within the Black Afro-Caribbean community. So that's entrenched in you as you're growing up, because the expectation is if you have a good education, you can get a good job, and you'll be financially stable in the future.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk more about that. I guess both of you have alluded to how things are changing. Would love to hear from Sabrina or Sarah, just in terms of the expectations of employers, what they're looking for and how that expectation is moving.
I would say, at least from my generation and in the legal field, there was definitely already an expectation that having good grades was not enough and that you would need to have actually experience even before entering the corporate world, which basically included unpaid internship, a lot of unpaid internship. And I think the issue is that if opportunity depends on that, then basically you're applying a filter and it rewards only the people that can afford uncertainty. So I think that's where we kind of like have a responsibility as senior leader to kind of like widen the lens when we're recruiting to ensure that different forms of potential are recognized.
That's interesting. I'm going to throw out a statistic. So nearly 1 million young people aged between 16 and 24 are not in education, not in work, and not in training. So I'm going to ask the Gen Zs right now, how have you seen the market change? Do you agree with what they've said? It'll be interesting to actually hear your perspective. I'll go to you, Vincent.
Yeah, I think the issue is a narrative issue. I think that I went to Cambridge, and I saw the fact that there were a lot of people who I went to university with who were struggling to get a job once they graduated. And so there's now alarm bells going off in my head, because the thing that I was told when I was younger was the fact that, look, you focus on getting good grades, and no matter what happens, it will open up 1,000,001 doors for you. If you end up going to Oxford or Cambridge, it will open up 1,000,001 doors for you. So then to see someone who's now graduated, they now feel shortchanged. And so I think the issue is largely the narrative, i.e. why you should go to university and what you should do while you're there. And those two questions, I think, aren't made hugely public or aren't spread. The answers to those are not spread amongst young people who are going into education. You are promised the concept of, yes, if you really work hard to then get a degree and follow the academic path whilst you are at university and focus on getting a good grade, focus on getting a first, and that might come at a sacrifice of maybe you working on a side project. That might come at a sacrifice of you doing an internship. And in truth, that's what recruiters are looking for. Recruiters are not looking necessarily for the grades that are on your CV, but it's much rather the tangible.
Looking at the grades.
Yeah, it's the tangible skills, it's the projects, it's the business you started at university, it's the societies that you joined, it's the different internships that you've done whilst you're there. But for myself, at least, like what I've seen is the fact that that's only within a small circle of high agency students who are like, oh yeah, you should get on it in terms of your internships. Oh yeah, you should get on it in terms of joining this society. But that's not widespread. So then you have a lot of people going into university, pushing hard to then get the good grade for the degree, and then coming out, and the recruiter's like, well, you don't have the skills that I'm looking for. And you're like, well, I've done the degree in order to get the job. So you're asking me for 3 years of experience. I've just come out of university. So what am I supposed to do?
I think there's some history to it, though. There might be, it's not completely unfounded that there was a focus on academics or on degrees. I think when I think through my career, there were two things that you would always see in my days when you were applying for a job. It would be what's your year's experience or what's your degree, and then you would actually even have job adverts that would say it needs a minimum of second class upper 2-1 or stuff. So of course the focus naturally for people became, if you score anything less than a 2-1, then you're below the pecking order. Companies had graduate schemes. It was more common for companies to have graduate schemes, for those graduate schemes to target very sharp, intelligent, high achieving graduates. And those graduates as a cohort, actually, because people had long careers through a company, saw themselves rise to the top. So it almost then became a little bit of a benchmark. People felt, okay, the best way to do this is I've got to go get a good degree, get onto the scheme, rise through the company and find myself at the top, or go to a good business school. MBAs was the other thing. Go to a good business school, get a good MBA, it guarantees me a leadership position. It did have, you know, there was some credence to it then, not anymore, absolutely. And actually, as employers now, what you're looking for are more of the skills, apart from the qualifications. But if I put someone in a team, how well do they, you know, gel in the team? How creative are they? How innovative are they? Do they think out of the box? You know?
It'll be interesting to hear from Christine specifically, because I know you work in social work and it could be a bit different.
Yeah, I definitely would say that I think with my background, it was very different in terms of the aspect of having to apply for job roles. It was a lot led by our experience. I think growing up, I've always wanted to go into the mental health field. So I was very driven around that aspect, and I did a lot of charity work, I did a lot of support work, and those were the things that they really picked up on in terms of just my out of work experience, as well as the education aspect. I've also been diagnosed with dyslexia since working as well, and I think that was really an eye-opener for myself, because I've also really struggled with the educational aspect throughout my life, so it's never been the main focus for me. And especially coming from a Nigerian background, there's been a lot of push from, you know, my family, parents around, you know, education coming first. And I think I've been a testament for my siblings, my younger siblings, that is not really the case. Our issue is around retention. And I think because I had a lot of practical experience, and a lot of trauma-informed experience through having, you know, the support worker background, I'm very resilient within work. They are looking more at the, you know, the practical side, because resilience is the issue within our field. And I think it's quite interesting as well, because a lot of people focus mostly on the educational aspect and then get into the workforce and get burnt out straight away.
It's interesting just hearing both sides, because I think there is a common theme. I don't think we're saying it's not about education, but on the other hand, the way of education was very much about being able to get your exam results and get a good grade, which was not necessarily the thing that it's just one way of measuring. And then employers have got wiser to recognize there's lots of people that can get that grade. That doesn't necessarily mean they are the type of people we want. And those that maybe can't get that grade doesn't mean we don't want them. So I think that's an interesting maturing in the way that companies are hiring and thinking about talent and skills. And most of you have also talked about the importance of skills, not just grades.
I think that's very key, and particularly for the younger generation joining the workforce, it's really understanding how you can articulate your experience to meet the requirements that the employer is looking for. My background's creative art. There's an art of storytelling. I can tell a story about anything. I can tell you how that plant, what I've learned from looking at that plant, why I need to get a job here at PwC, right? So find a way to make it work. And what you're doing, you're also infusing humor into it. They're going to remember you for that. And people underestimate the power of a really, really strong cover letter that hooks the reader right from the get-go, because most people, because of the amount of applications you get through, you don't want to go through everyone. So you're reading through the cover letter and you're looking for key things. And this is before we even start talking about AI being the one to sift through applications. But for example, if it is still a human person that's reading through it, you want to catch their attention with key things that they've put in the job description and put in the job ad to make you stand out. There's a number of different things that you can do even before you have that interview. Once you've applied, there's people that you can follow up with on LinkedIn. You can speak to people that already work within the company, tell them that you've applied for the role. You're looking for some tips on how to navigate the interview. You haven't received the confirmation of your interview yet, but what you're doing is you're tapping into a network that's already there.
I think it's important to make sure that you're not using AI to write your cover letters and to produce your CVs, because we see it immediately, because it's the same one. You know, the language is the same, the format is the same. So immediately I can see that, are you truly interested in this role? And a lot of the time you can see that they've just they've just changed the key letter, the keywords to match the description, the job description. But when I speak to you about it, I know that really you're not passionate about this job. It's probably maybe the firm, the business that you want to get into, or you just need a job. But I need someone that actually knows the job that they're applying for. So I'd be very wary. I'm not saying you can't use it at all, but don't just generate ChatGPT, write me a cover letter, put my name, put your name, and send it. You have to personalize it. You have to build upon it, because otherwise I'm just seeing it's a lazy application.
Do you then think, like companies should be held to that same standard? So do you think companies shouldn't use AI to just sort of filter through some of the people who apply to them and spend a lot of their time and effort, and then it's like,
we don't use, at my firm, we don't use AI to go through the CVs, no. They will all come through. I will sit and I will go through all of them. If you work for a big brand, a lot of the time people use that as a means to get in the door, but I know that you're not going to be here for long. So if I am going to invest my time, I need to know that you're dedicated to this role. And if you're not, I've got 100 people here, and I'm not even exaggerating. This is a thing. Back in the day, when I was young, there were only a few people who had the degrees. Even less people had their MBAs. Now I can, and everyone's got a degree, and all of them are 2-1 up. So now I have to read your CV. I have to see what jobs you've done. I have to look at what your hobbies are, what experience you have, to then differentiate between you guys.
Yeah, I think first of all, going back to what you said about how like your company specifically doesn't use AI, that's a really rare thing to hear. I've never heard of that since last year, and I mean I haven't been, but like I know some friends who graduated like 3 years ago who have still been applying for roles and they can't get it. And for like context, I studied computer science, okay? That was always one of the golden ones, like study computer science, your software engineering is waiting for you as soon as you grab your graduation certificate, there you go, job. Not the case, and not the case for a lot of people. And I think right now, especially last year, I was volunteering with this women tech startup, and we were helping to mentor women in tech who'd gone through hundreds and hundreds of applications. Like they're literally sending 500 applications across the whole year, hearing back from maybe 10, and then getting interviews for maybe 2. So it's really hard to put so much effort into personalizing each and every application. And then maybe more should be encouraged to apply to industries who value that personal touch and value that interest. But I don't think there's a lot more out there, or if there are, there's not a lot more communication about it. And ATS literally rings in the back of a lot of people's minds. It's this nightmare tool, which you have to put all these keywords and the white text in your CV and everything like that. So I think it's quite difficult to find that balance between, okay, personalizing this application so that it's really putting your best foot forward, but at the same time doing that times 100, times 12 for each month.
And sorry to interrupt, but I have to say as well, because I know there's loads of people applying, really trying, and there's just a truth of the matter that there are fewer jobs and more people. So I know some people watching this are going to be like, my CV is personalized, I'm spending hours on each application, I keep getting rejected, I have experience, I have this, and I think it is just the truth of the matter.
I've got a bit of a, I don't know, I guess I call it somewhat of a controversial opinion on this, but I think that there's too much focus on the application. I think that people right now, especially from what you said as well, the focus is, okay, I need to apply to as many jobs as possible. When, for myself, I've been, quote unquote, I guess, applying to jobs which I shouldn't really be getting my whole life. I ended up applying for investment banking. I never did maths A-level, and I studied languages at uni, right? I have nothing to do with finance on my CV. Even now, I work in AI, I never did computer science or anything like that. So what I've always focused on, and I think what a lot of young people, whether they're at university, should really focus on, especially whenever they come to me and they say that they've applied to a number of different jobs, is forget about applying to the jobs. You don't want to confine yourself to a piece of paper. You don't want to confine yourself to a cover letter or a CV. your main goal should be to get in front of the people who you want to actually speak to. How can they see the whites of your eyes? How can they get to know your personality? Because that's how much like what you said, and how you can tell your story. Because a lot of people, the stuff on their CV, it might not perfectly articulate who they are. And for the majority of people, it doesn't perfectly articulate who they are. So what I always do is I would never apply to a job without reaching out to at least 4 or 5 people at the firm and having a call before I even apply, because they might give you a referral, flag your application. You might even skip that screening stage and don't even have to go through ATS. You can go and get that first, second interview. And I think that's a really, really important.
These are the gems that we need to talk about, because I guess where we were going previously in the conversation is quite linear and it's quite process focused. And I think often as Black people, we do that because someone's given us like the steps to take. And so we're going through those steps. But the reality, exactly what you just said, most people are not getting the job that way. And so it's who you know, it's how you're networking, your brand. I loved what you said about storytelling as well. So it's thinking about the story that you're telling, all of those things. So tell me more about those things. I want those gems that are actually
Get on
shifting.
LinkedIn and reach out to 10 people a day who are doing exactly what you want to do. It doesn't matter like if they've got jobs open, if they don't have jobs open, make a list of the dream companies that you want to work at, find each and every person who's doing something that you want to do, reach out to them, connect to them.
I have a different take because I didn't go to uni to get a job. I went to uni to have fun. Like that was always my thing. And because I was lucky, they were going to pay me to go to university.
To have fun.
Yeah, to have fun. I was literally, it was my first job ever. I literally got to uni, was getting salary every single month. This is an apprenticeship, sorry, to clarify. And yeah, I was a normal uni student from September to March. And then from March onwards, I was working at PwC right here. And I think for me, because I never even thought, job wasn't even like in the question. It was always about, I want to learn how computers work. That's why I want to take computer science. I think I found it quite hard to then go into the work field and be like, oh, this is a job. This doesn't really match with what I learned at university. But what made me quite employable was because I couldn't stay settled in a team. So I kept on jumping. Can I join your team? Can I join your team? Can I do this? And then if you know me, I have 10,000 side projects as well, like trying to keep myself entertained, find out what I like doing. And in the end, all of those kind of made a little theme and made me someone that has so many skills. So I can go to an employer and be like, okay, I've done this, this links to this. But it's interesting what you said because I change what I want to be like every few months. So
This is the thing. It's very much a generational thing because we stayed for life or we stayed for a long period of time. So it is very much understanding each other and what each other need.
I don't think those views are mutually exclusive. I think what we're talking about is differentiation, right? Whether you write a CV that is, in your case, you were saying you want to see differentiation in the CV, not a CV that's been written by AI, not a CV that just looks churned out. And I think what you were saying on the other side is also differentiating, establishing yourself, making yourself stand out. And that's really is the key. I mean, I will say, going from my time, I'm not doing what I did for my degree, and I've never done. I studied a degree, I did something else as a postgraduate, and then I did an MBA. 3 completely different experiences. But they all come into a medley of who I am in terms of skills, and it builds that. Through my career, I've also done different things. I've sometimes moved sideways into a different function or a different discipline to get skills that would help me become a better leader. So, but it's about differentiating yourself. As a young person, when you put that when someone sees your CV, they go, yes, I like the fact that, there's something different about this person from everything else that I see, You wanted to jump in.
No, agree. I completely agree, but I just also wanted to jump back on the AI and differentiator. I think a lot of industries, at least in the banking industry, AI is being pushed massively. So whereas before, kind of like the key differentiator was your knowledge, now the key differentiator is going to be how you use those tools, how you understand their limits, and how you apply your judgments. So in a way, I would say, do draft your CV with ChatGPT, but be smart about it. Like, be actually smart about it. Learn to leverage that tool so that it becomes a differentiator.
I agree with yourself in terms of, yes, definitely networking is the way to go now. True. You know, my generation, it was definitely the CV, the cover letter was the opening of the door. Now, definitely it's about networking. It's about just connecting with people. It's joining different, if you're looking to get into marketing or procurement, you will join like the SIPs or the SIM and go to their event evenings. And there you will see their leaders. There they will get to know you, get to see how involved or passionate you are on the subject, and then they will stay in touch. So it is definitely about, or, you know, even using social media. Yeah. If you've got a social media platform, whether it be Instagram or the TikTok, you know, you can have the personal and then you can have the professional, and then you build yourself, you build those connections, you showcase what you know, and then the people will come to you.
It's your public CV. Your social media page, your public CV.
To build on that, going back to the quantity of applications that young people are putting through now, you're just applying because you feel like you're desperate, you want a job. But then it reduces the quality of your application as well. So I'd say focus on the quality of the application. It might take a bit longer, but you've gathered enough research, enough evidence to be able to make a strong application forward. And to your point, networking is key. Like in our line of work, there are jobs that aren't even jobs yet that we've placed young people in because they were presented before the individual who was planning on creating a role in this particular team, but they hadn't done that yet. Then they meet the person that's perfect for that role. So they don't even need to go through that whole process. They do the job description and then the person's already there, overlooking all those other initial steps of those screening things that they have to go through in order for them to get the job in the first place. So using your LinkedIn and using your LinkedIn well, like you said, write a list of the companies you like to work for, the industries you like to work for, the function that you like to do within that role, who's currently doing that at the moment. Send them an invitation. I'm fresh out of uni, you know, I'm looking for some experience, would love to grab a coffee. I've seen this on your page, this really struck a chord with me. I really would love to understand a bit more about this, or I read your name in this paper. So show that you already have some interest in it. It's not just blind, I need some mentorship. I see that you work here. Come and support me.
Or also, what do I need to do to get that job? And instead of like spending, I don't know, like 300 days applying to 500 applications, use that time to actually build the skills to go to your dream job.
I completely agree as well, like with what you were saying. And something that people need to start as well is starting a bit earlier, because if you're a first-year student doing all of this, it seems so much more impressive than maybe, like, it's still impressive if you're a grad doing all of this, but showing that like initial interest as well can help you put your foot in the right door. Because, for example, like, okay, my experience was what you would say is pretty smooth, because I went from the spring week to the internship to the grad program, and I'm still kind of at the same company. And one thing, like, if I never heard of spring weeks in passing, when I was just talking to people in the industry, going to events in first year, I went to uni in Leeds for reference, and I came to London for career events like every other month just to try and understand what was happening. If I didn't hear about spring weeks, I would probably not, I may not have a job right now, or I'd definitely not be where I am today. So I think it's trying to like expose yourself earlier before, don't expect like, oh, okay, once I graduate, that's when I'm going to start looking for a job. Be like, okay, maybe in first year I need to try and think about what I can do, build those skills, start building that professional network, because even like, I'm sure most people here, like our LinkedIns were probably pretty quiet until maybe we graduated or something. But if you're first year, posting about your ideas, posting about the event you went to, posting about like what you know and what you're trying to learn, then that helps you to stand out even earlier on. And it goes back to the differentiation point as well. It's like, just how can you make people think, oh, okay, that's someone to watch out for, that's someone I want to nurture, that's someone I want to just keep track of, and doing that early on.
It's a very important point, and it's about being proactive and taking the initiative. And that's actually something you look for when you're bringing people onto the team. So the fact that you see someone who's starting the process earlier, who's gone out, who's engaging, who's taking the initiative, reaching out, learning, tells you a bit about that person when you put them in a role. So absolutely.
So, I mean, it's great hearing this. I think the key theme about differentiation, exactly as you said, the market's changing, so you're constantly trying to find the way that you need to stand out, and that requires creativity, it requires resilience. So I'm interested in, how do we then shape this next stage, or the next redesign of employment, in a sense? Like, many of you have talked mainly about what you need to do to fit into the current systems. And I would really love to hear from the Gen Z about what you might like the systems to look like, or how you're going outside of the systems, potentially, to kind of make other routes for financial security and income for yourselves.
I think for me, in terms of how I'm going, I guess, outside of the system with regards to applying to sort of companies and firms, is I think now that like a lot of entry-level jobs that, a couple of years ago perhaps would have been offered to grads or interns has now been outsourced due to like globalization. I can say in my company, like there are a lot of jobs that are based perhaps in like Bangalore or in India that, previously you could be a young person looking for experience, and that could be your gateway into sort of experience. So I think the soft skills now, obviously, also with automation, the soft skills that I guess AI and technology can't give you, I think honing in on that, and again, like showing the interviewer who you are, who are you like outside of work, what kind of person you can be in a team, sort of how do you communicate, like what are your skills, what are your values, are you aligned to what the company wants to see? I think soft skills can be really, really important. And also, not to mention, there's sort of a younger generation who've grown up on technology, sort of iPhones and iPads. I think I got my first phone when I was like year 7, which is late these days. So I think being able to like hold a conversation and just genuinely speak to someone about what you're passionate about, I think that can go very far.
Yeah. Anything else that you guys would add, actually?
I want to hear Christine, because this is very corporate.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very different from...
Yeah, bring your experience, Christine.
From my point of view, especially with being health, is that we aren't very money focused or money led. I think with my sister, she's applying for, she's trying to get into medicine, and she's in university now, but she's more worried about the retention aspect within her role, not whether or not she's capable of being a doctor. And I think one of the things that me and her have been able to bounce off on is the passion that we have for what we're going into. And I think a lot of my corporate friends that I speak to, they're often more focused around the money-led aspect, which economy at the moment, money is a big factor, and it's something that does impact your ability to have passion for the application process when you've been given how many no's.
I think what's really interesting is like, I work in AI, I work in tech. So at work is like AI, Claude, ChatGPT, Grok, all these tools. And I step at home and my dad is like, I don't use AI, I'm never downloading it. And then I see my friends who work in fields completely different to me. They're thinking, I want to do a job that has impact. I just want to earn like my 2 cents and have purpose. And I went to uni to be able to do those things. And the jobs that exist are more towards that money-making aspect, that corporate aspect. And then they feel like, okay, since I can't find what I wanted to do to make impact, I now have to tailor my CV and try and find a way to make it match all of these corporate jobs in a way.
Yeah, but again, when we were talking earlier about transferable skills, I think there is a massive importance about having purpose, even if that purpose is not necessarily found in your corporate world. Because down the line, when you're actually looking at leadership roles, you can get those way easier in community, charities, etc. So leading your own project, actually. So get those skills, and then it's how, again, you're selling them. You can sell any experience. Literally, you could sell any experience. It's how you phrase it. So, yeah.
I think just on the money question, and I've been thinking about it, apart from the fact that obviously cost of living, the cost of living is something else, and going through the roof these days. But I do feel for young graduates, because you now have more young graduates coming out with an average of about £27,000 to £30,000 debt from student fees and student loans that they took in, which is very different to our day. I mean, if you take the history of student fees, for instance, in 1998, it was about £1,000, and it was means tested. In 2006, it was 3,000. It's 9,000. And by September this year, it's going up again, closer to the 10,000 mark. So more people come out with debt, and then struggling to really get onto the ladder. And so there must be something about that drives the psyche of people to say, I really do need to go for something that is more economically driven. But I think the flip side of those is, compared to our days, you also see more people who have degrees and qualifications that are about the things that they love to do. As a parent, we've never told our children what they need to study, and they've all studied things that, or are en route to study things that are their passions that they love. I think being able to then match that with the opportunities you have outside, but to the point you make, if those opportunities are not there, starting to think about how you can create some opportunities. And we now live in the world where there are lots of openings in different areas. I mean, the creative industry looks very different to what it looked like, 10, 20 years ago. So saying to yourself, I really want to establish that purpose. What is it that I really want to do? What drives me? I don't think the days of long careers and people sitting in one company for 30 years, long gone. Nobody's going to do that. And I think in your lifetime, all of you will have 2, 3, 4, 5 different careers. You'll move from different things, get different experiences. But the most important thing is having that purpose and that passion. Why am I doing this? What does it, the why really drives you, and that helps you become even better at what you want to achieve.
I think it's an interesting dynamic if we specifically think about this demographic that we're talking to as well, because like we said, people said, get the good job, get the good grade. You talked about the white collar as well. And now the market's changing so much. So some of those professions are actually the ones that are majorly at threat. And so parents maybe are still advising you to go that way, and they may be disadvising you to go to a creative industry or even become an entrepreneur, for example. I've got friends who have Nigerian parents and they're wanting to make a career switch and worried about the family's view of what that might look like and the job security that might not exist in the same way from being in a corporate. So as well as the financial pressure, there's also this cultural element as well, which I find quite interesting, and how we shift that narrative in terms of where the market is going to open up the possibilities for Black people.
I think there's two sides to the coin. I think that yes, like right now as a young person, like it's the wild, wild west. I'll be dead honest. Like, you're telling me that the salaries aren't necessarily rising. There's a cost of living crisis. You're telling me it's very, very difficult to get onto the housing ladder. And with the current AI wave, that might change within the next 10 years, it will completely change the way in which we work. So therefore, the concept of job security, financial security, out of the window. So right now, I think on the flip side of the coin, there's now like the biggest like decentralization of like what success is right now. Like previously, it was okay, cool. If you're director at XYZ professional service firm, if a lot of people, African Caribbean households, is lawyer, doctor, banker, etc., etc. Whereas now, like the things that you see, you open up your phone, you go on TikTok, you're seeing a content creator being able to make 6 figures a year, and they're traveling around the world doing God knows what. You're seeing another guy who's 20 years old who's raised 2 million quid for his startup, and like I think now it's an amazing time because it really is empowering, because it's telling young people, okay, cool, this is the wild, wild west, and now there's been no better time to bet on yourself and bet on your skills. And equally, yes, it means that it's very, very difficult when there are limited job prospects to be able to be like, oh yeah, I want to work on exactly what I'm passionate about, because someone will come and tell you, oh yeah, no, you ain't making no money off of being being creative in that respect or whatever. But yeah, I think during my time at Cambridge, I was very, very big on, cool, I want to build a business because I have no clue what's going to happen after I leave university. There are a bunch of different ideas I have, a bunch of different interests I have, but when you have a bunch of different interests, there's no real way like for you to be able to do all of them at once. And so for myself, and if anyone here is juggling any multiple different passions, like the number one thing So just pick one of them and just do it. Do it for a long period of time. And Salome is a testament to this. Like, do it for a period of time, and then you will get from how you feel, from taking that action, whether that's going to an event, working on the project for a period of time, all of that, the emotions that brings out of you is the data that you can then use to be like, okay, let me double down on this in the future. Let me go and pursue a role in this in the future. And you get so many connections from there. But I think the more that you, I guess, stay and watch and consume, whether that's content or watching other people do X, Y, Z in their career and be like, oh yeah, no, like I'd really like to do that, but don't worry about me. I'd never do that kind of thing. Like, I think it's really, really important, especially if you're a young person, if you're interested in something, to like take action on it. Like, that's the biggest thing. If you have an interest, any sort of interest, do not leave it to 2-3 years down the line and you still haven't done it. Just give it a shot. Do it for like 6 months. If you don't like it, whatever.
I like that because of the. Oh, sorry, you go.
No, I was going to say, like, it's so inspiring. I hear people say that all the time. And then I feel like I just step into my house and I'm always like, you're leaving your job? You're starting again? And it's just, for me, that's the hard part. It was like, obviously, I left a big corporation to join a startup. And my mom, she was already nervous about me doing computer science. She was nervous about an apprenticeship. She was like, I want you to be a doctor. She got my grandma to call me. My grandma was like crying. She was like, please. And then I had to tell them I will get paid. And I saw this as such a high risk. And I got into it and everybody was like, you're so lucky. You won the lottery. And I can't believe I nearly turned the opportunity down because my parents were so scared. And you can't blame them for being scared because it's what they know. They just want you to be successful. But at the same time, hearing someone like Vincent and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start my own business one day. And then it's just like money and security and all, it's so risky in my head.
You don't have children yet.
Yeah.
That's
to build on that, you know, there's a saying that you don't know what you don't know. And for a very long time, being someone that left a comfortable job in the creative industry to go and start out my own thing, granted I did it a bit later on in life, but I still had to explain to my parents, like, this is what I'm trying to do, and they didn't get it. And I think we're now, 14 years in, and only now are they starting to get it because it's making sense. But you're still young, you don't have any additional responsibilities, you don't have quote unquote real bills to pay just yet. So you can afford to take that risk, and that opportunity is not going to be there forever. You know, I've got friends now who are married with kids who went down the corporate route and went all in. They were earning 6 figures really early, but then they're now in a position where if they stop working, then their livelihood literally dips. So a number of us took that risk when we could afford to take that risk. We didn't have family members that could offer us that safety net. I love what you were saying about you didn't encourage your kids to go into a particular thing. They could pursue their purpose. That is such a wonderful thing to be able to offer young black kids that so many of us didn't have. Even some of the young people that we support that are going into entrepreneurship, they can't afford to fail. Yeah. And there's that fear of this has to work because I've given up a lot. There's a lot riding on me, and I'm carrying my family, I'm carrying my community, I'm carrying the people back home. You know, there's that added pressure. But for you to be able to offer and that's what we all want, really. We want to be able to make that situation a lot better for those coming back. And when I look back at my journey, look at, you know, my parents coming here, working hard, working multiple jobs just to support. Now, I'm in a different position where my family set up and situation is not like that. And that, for me, is what success looks like. Yeah,
just coming back on the parents as well, I don't think we should wait for our parents' permission. I don't think we should wait for anybody's permission. That's it. Exactly.
But there's something, I think there's something interesting about, because you talked about passion and purpose, like, and I liked what you mentioned because it's like we have that passion, pick something, do something. So it's a difference between, like you saying, if it was in my generation, telling your parents you want to be a footballer or you want to be a singer, and they'll be like, how many people actually can be successful in that? Maybe do a doctor because we know that will be successful. And so there's a difference when you really say, I want to be a footballer and here's how I'm going about about being a footballer. So exactly what you just talked through, it shows a different level of commitment and passion to making that a success. And I think that's what they want. Like you said, it's out of a place of love. They want to know you're serious. And that's the same from an employer perspective as well, because you describe people jumping from career to career to career. If it's that you're just not sure what you're doing with your life, that's one thing, versus if you're on a learning experience and you're like, I want to go and try this, I want to try that. It's a different story to tell. So that passion and purpose have to be the driver, but then the way you tell the story, I think, is the overall theme that I'm taking from this.
I think aside from the story as well, it's the follow through.
Yes.
So you've told someone that you'll want to do this, that I'm passionate about this, but yet you're still in bed at 12 p.m. That's not someone that's serious. And also, bills are still rolling. You know, you've been to uni, you graduated, but you're still sleeping at 11 a.m. You're not serious. You know, like, you need to be the first person up. You need to be out. You need to be doing what you're doing. They need to see that. So, like, my parents didn't understand what I was doing, but they saw that he's going at it. So when, you know, I didn't have money to get by, when I was asking for a bit of transport money, they knew that I was going somewhere. So it took years for them to start to see it. It even took outsiders coming in and saying, "Right, like, Drew, your brother, Drew, your son." Like, and then they're like, "All right, I didn't know that he was making."
It definitely comes from a good place, and you have to remember that most of your parents would have not had the opportunities that are available to you now, and if they found themselves in lucrative jobs, would have been one of the only ones, would have had to really stand out, would have had to work exceptionally hard. And that's not to say that you don't need to do that today. It comes from a place of concern, but that there's a job of educating your parents and enlightening them around the the art of the possible, what's possible, what can be done, and backing that up with the right behaviors. As we say, you wake up, you do the job, you go out and get some of the experience that you want to, in an area that you want to work in. You show that you're backing that passion with the purpose. Absolutely.
Another tip actually as well.
Yeah, no, I guess it's more of a question, to be honest. I'm intrigued as to, like, how big passion and purpose was in the careers that you guys selected, and in the work that you guys do full time. Because I guess for us right now, I think the narrative around your career and how that relates to, I guess, your passion, what you do full time, there's a much different kind of narrative around that. But I'd be intrigued to hear for you guys.
Yeah, and I can start that off because I've talked about passion and purpose. I think the one thing I've been very clear about in my career is I own my career, not an organization or a company. I'm very clear about the things that I want to do and the things that I don't want to do. There are things that I'd be willing to explore. If an organization says, "Oh, we want you to go and work on this project," I'd be willing to explore. But I'm very clear about the areas, the things that are my skills and the things that aren't. So let me give you a story. I started off my career in project management, my background. But at the time, IT tech was a very big thing. And I got, I did a postgraduate in computer studies. I got tech skills. But I realized that I wasn't a techie. I was more the guy who actually got the techies together and understood what we needed to do, gathered the business requirements, and got them to do the job. And so for me, it was very clear. I was never going to be the guy cutting code. I was never going to be the guy fixing the building machines. But I was going to be the guy who was going to sit there, bring a bunch of tech guys together and say, this is how we're going to build a plan to deliver what we do. And that's because I knew that I was more of a people person who liked to engage and bring people. I was more of someone who liked to build and sort of see the outcome, so very outcome focused. So you understand what your strengths are, the things that you're very good at, the things that are your strengths. As I say, your passion comes from your strengths, and then you sort of, as you say, get very purposeful about how you go about it, and that's where you build that into your career. I mean, Sarah, you're a lawyer. You can tell us. Were you just very argumentative? Were you just very argumentative?
I would. I think that was a career that kind of came naturally to me because I was argumentative. But then I did find my passion outside as well of my job, and that's what I kind of like want to emphasize. I'm running a charity, Tech for Good charity. I'm the co-chair of the Black Employee Network Group, and that's those kind of things that actually do bring me purpose even in my corporate world, and that brings me skills in terms of leadership, in terms of organization, project delivery, that then I'm reusing into my corporate sector, and which is boosting my career. So again, finding your passion, even if it's outside of your corporate or main line, and use those skills, because most of the time, again, you're gonna grow faster in those alternative lines, and then the point is, how do you transfer those skills back into your main career?
And sorry, just one small addition. One small addition, because it's important. It's important. In all of my leadership journey, I always say that the greatest thing that prepared me for leadership wasn't business school, wasn't an MBA. It was actually when I was growing up, I used to play basketball and being the captain of a basketball team and learning how to bring together my peers and my friends and organize the team and having that leadership at such an early age. So it wasn't, I think that's when I started to learn how to lead people, just as you say, and build those skills. Not so much, I mean, I've enhanced that through studies and experience, but the core of it came from actually something I did passionately, leading a team, playing a game that I love.
Sorry, I was just conscious of time, so I wanted to kind of bring us towards a close. I would like to go around everybody, and the ask will be for you to share a final message to your younger self, whatever younger might mean for you. And I want to put that in the context of, like, the conversation that we've had today has been really, I won't summarize all of the themes, but just the movement that we made from initially talking about the current job crisis and how we get applications to be better and whether we're using AI or not, then to actually reframing that problem and thinking about different ways people are going about it, the creativity that's required, the resilience that we talked about, different approaches to building relationships and so on, and maybe even different models of what a career and success financially might look like for you, and then coming at the end to this purpose and passion. And at the same time, I'm conscious that those that might watch this are going through like quite a draining time. Like, we know the market is less, there's less jobs, it is tough, and the mental resilience that requires is difficult. So with all of that context of what has been said, I would like to go around. I don't want to go like a doom of death thing, but if anyone wants to go first, just your message that you would like to leave us on today.
I don't mind going first. I think the message for my younger self would be to keep doing what I was doing. I think, like we kind of said today, that passion was the main drive and focus for me. And I think things take time, good things take time. And I think when you have that passion there and you have that drive, when you do find those barriers towards you, reaching the end goal, you'll be able to sort of go back onto those moments, what led you to, have this vision in the first place. For my younger self, I was very scared, especially with, what I was going into. It's not a role that is very known within Nigerian households. It's not something that's very promoted. Mental health isn't something that we often talk about. So I think with having that passion and this, like, dissociating myself from my parents' goals, I became my own individual person. And I think through doing that, I'm even more thankful with where I am now, because I think, with the outcome of being a mental health social worker, it's been a lot more beneficial to myself, and my parents have been able to see how happy it's making me.
I think for me, I'd say, like, stay curious and stay true to who you are. So I think, especially with an age of like technology, sort of Instagram, it's easy to get caught up in what the new hot thing is now. I want to be a content creator when I was going to be a YouTuber, then I wanted to be a footballer. My mum nodded along, but she didn't believe any of that. It's easy to almost get drifted, but I think if you stay curious and stay true to who you are, even though what you might want at that point in time could change, you are still finding the fastest route to sort of who you are and the best path for yourself. So almost by, process of elimination, you can sort of do one thing if you believe that's best for you at that point in time. Understand more, A, about what you like, but B, perhaps more importantly, what you don't like. And understand why you don't like that. What about your sort of characteristics perhaps doesn't align? Is it maybe Are you less of a numbers person, more of someone who got the theories and concepts? And I think that is the fastest route to finding a fulfilling and successful career.
Yeah, I think for me, it's two things to just continue doing, because I like to say that I don't have many regrets, because I don't think it's good to keep like holding things that maybe you might wish you did differently, but just to learn from those as well. So the first one is just continue trying to find mentors in everything. And then the second one is continue never telling myself no first. And I'm a very strong believer of what you said, which is you don't know what you don't know. And honestly, there's so many things I wouldn't know if someone didn't tell me. And one thing I really enjoy is learning from people and putting myself in environments where I can just take in what they're saying. Like even today, I've learned so much. I'm going to go write about it after this. But I just love like listening to people, sharing their experiences, sharing their thoughts. So just kind of keep trying to find people who are doing that, because it's not hearing all these opinions isn't clouding my judgment. It's helping me see where I align more clearly. And then the next one, not telling myself no first. Like, I think for me, I've always been trying to go for what I want and how I get that. And that's helped me a lot, because recently I was talking to someone and she actually, she got a job interview and she's been waiting for a job interview for months, but she heard how many people applied for the job and she actually called them up to say, no, I don't want to do this interview. And that's the first time I'd ever heard of that. And that instilled a new fear in me. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, like, I never want to be the one rejecting myself from an opportunity. I want to take everything as it comes, understand how it can benefit me, understand how I can learn from it, and basically go for things without saying, okay, no, I'm not going to do this first. So yeah, those are the two things I tell myself.
I think your 20s and your late teens are for understanding yourself in the best way possible. Like learning exactly who you are, what you like, what you don't like, much to what you said previously. And the funny thing is that you can't do that without taking action. You can't do that thinking about stuff in your room. You can't do that necessarily even just spending a bunch of time reflecting. Like the only thing you can do, right, is through having conversations with people who you look up to, who you might potentially want to be. And a big thing for me also is building like an anti-CV. So like an anti-CV of all of the experiences that I've had previously, the different projects that I've worked on, and the mistakes that I've made. Just reflect on it completely and understand what it is about that I liked. What is it about that went well for me, and why did it go well for me? And from there, you can learn so much more about yourself moving forward, because that way you don't end up in a role that you hate. You don't end up in working on a project which doesn't serve you. And I think it's a really important thing to really get to understand yourself. But the only way that you can do that is through putting yourself out there, working on projects, speaking to people, going to events. So yeah, my message to my younger self would be to just take action. You have to live your own life. A lot of the time people have an opinion, and yes, it will come from a good place, and in most cases it will come from a good place, but that doesn't mean that it's right for you. So sometimes you just have to find your own path. Yes, you share the journey and how you plan on doing it with your loved ones, but don't let it dictate your next moves. And also, time, you don't always have a lot of time. When you're young, you think, I'm going to have 50 years, it's years away. I'll do that then. Let me do this now, but I'll put that off until later on. If you've got the dream to do it now, and you've got the ability to do it now, try it now and be consistent. Take the action, but be consistent in what you do. Because there's a lot of people, and I look at my family, they'll start something, and then in a month, it didn't work, I'm out. A lot of the time, it just takes more. It just keep pushing yourself, keep going, don't stop, don't give up. And a lot of the time, that's when you see the success and you see the growth. And even if it doesn't work out, generally you've learned something, but you can change. It's not all or nothing, especially when you're a younger age. I mean, I'm not to say even that we couldn't do that now, but it's not the be-all and end-all. You can still continue and do something else. So those are the two things I'd say to myself.
Great. Mine would be simple. I'd say don't let the world knock you. You know, believe in yourself. Don't overthink it. You know, trust your instincts, and it will all be okay.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think, again, repeating what has been said before, staying true to yourself. And yeah, I think that's the key one, to be fair. To me, it's like really staying true to yourself and just enjoying the journey as well. Yes. Instead of just like looking at just the result, just enjoy each step.
For me, I'd say is keep feeding your curiosity. I was always a curious child. I was the child that's constantly asking questions, and time after time after time, I was told to just shut up, keep quiet, it's okay, stop talking. And what that did for me, it just made me become a lot more insular. So I'd ask a question, I wouldn't get an answer, but I'd still keep thinking about that question until I got to an answer. So that fed my ability to always come to a solution. My problem-solving skills were really kind of owned in that arena.
I love it. Salome, we're coming towards the end.
Yeah, coming towards
Happy
the
with
end.
how the conversation has gone? What are you taking away for yourself?
I've learned so much. I think the key thing is we see organizations, like if you see your names on paper, it's like Eddie, BBC leader, leader at Chanel, CEO, lawyer, and then it's just like your mother, your fathers, and your people. And for me, it's just remembering that, like when you're reaching out to people on LinkedIn, when you're speaking to people, just remember that they're just people as well. And then one thing I wanted to say is be very wary of the labels people put on you, and make sure you know who you are. So when somebody comes and says, oh, she's just the black girl, she's just the creative, or she's just, I don't know this, you can be like, no, I am this person, because you can tell the confidence, the aura you guys have of just like knowing who you are. And it's really, really inspiring as well. And just hearing from a range of different experiences as well. It's been really good.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Very much appreciate it. I thank everyone for sharing so openly your perspectives. I particularly like the moments of disagreement and conflict amongst us, and a bit of controversy as well. I think that's needed, and I think we've got to a much more honest conversation because of it. It's a very difficult world. It's a challenging world at the moment. So I loved what you said, Duro, about not just providing our own wealth for ourselves or for our families. How do we share that wealth of knowledge? And that's really the intention of this. I hope that those watching benefit from what they've learned today, and we continue to share amongst each other.